I heard that you're all about to read Mystery on Pine Lake, and I thought it'd be a lot of fun to start you off by reading chapter 1. But it is February, and it's cold and snowy tonight, so how about we set the stage? We get in the mood for the book. So I want you to think about warm May days, sunshine beaming down, campfires, nighttime campfires, where you're roasting marshmallows on a stick over the flame, over the crackling flames. The call of the loon, swimming and fishing with your friends. Does that help? Shall we start Cooper and Packrat's first adventure? Are you ready? Here's chapter 1. Loons have been known to battle to the death to protect their territory. But the argument usually ends with the loser giving up and flying away. Don't let it be a gross one. Don't let it be a gross one. I prayed over and over in my head as I looked down on the metal trash can. Grasping the lid handle, I hoped this one would have the usual trash on top. Half-eaten burgers or slimy potato salad, plastic marshmallow bags, empty Hershey bar wrappers, or a squished-up graham cracker box. I sucked in a breath and I lifted the lid. Flies came out like a puff of steam. The lifeless black beady eyes of some half-eaten lobsters lay on top of the trash, staring up at me. Little white maggots squiggled in and out of leg holes. I groaned and let out my breath in a whoosh. I quickly grabbed the bag with 2 hands and hauled it up and out of the can to set it on the ground. Lobster shells and guts shifted. Their horrible stench flew right up my nose. Don't throw up, don't throw up, don't throw up. My throat started to do that watery thing, and I tried breathing really fast to get it to stop. And then I felt something in my mouth. Something buzzing. A fly! I dropped the bag and leaned forward to spit on the ground again and again and again. Shuddering, I spit one more time to make sure there wasn't a wing or an antenna or something still floating around under my tongue. Then I rubbed my sleeve over my mouth as I quickly checked over both shoulders. Whew, it didn't look like anybody had seen my almost hurl. Taking a breath, I held it in deep this time and double knotted the bag as tightly as I could. Why did I always get the ultra gross trash cans? On the other side of the road, Dad whistled as he walked from can to can, grabbing the bags by the knots and heaving them high into the air to land on all the other bags in the dump truck bed. I had no idea what he had to whistle about. I mean, I could think of a gazillion things I'd rather be doing on a drizzly Saturday morning in May than almost barfing up a fly. I searched the truck bed for the perfect landing spot so the bag wouldn't bounce back out or get hung up on the tall wooden sides. I swung it back and forth like a horseshoe. Just as I opened my hand to let the bag fly, my arm got bumped from behind. I realized 2 things at the exact same time. 1, it was no accidental bump. I knew this from the evil grin Roy shot me over his shoulder as he rode past on his bike. And 2, that bag had gone straight up in the air over my head. Ducking quickly out of the way, I then turned to watch helplessly as the bag hit the ground and split wide open like an old jack-o'-lantern that had been heaved onto somebody's driveway. Coffee grounds, potato peels, slimy green paper towels, little cereal boxes, and a carton of chunky milk exploded from it. Splatters of lobster guts hit my sneakers and the bottoms of my jeans. I glared at Roy, who'd skidded to a stop next to my dad to gloat over the mess. "Cooper," Dad yelled, "how many times have I told you to be more careful?" "Roy hit my arm on purpose." Roy's smug smile turned to a sad little frown in the split second it took for Dad to look down at him. "Honest, Mr. Wilder, it was an accident. I was trying to go around the puddle. I didn't see Cooper there doing the trash run." Those last 2 words were said with just enough of a sneer for me to hear it and my dad to miss it. Dad put a hand on Roy's damp, red-haired head. After all the rain we've had, I'm surprised you can avoid the puddles at all. He looked at me. How about you apologize to Roy? But, Dad, he really... Roy's smug smile was back, now that Dad was looking my way. I balled up my hands, itching to charge that liar and knock him off his bike into one of the puddles he claimed to be avoiding. I'd stomped halfway to the dump truck for a shovel and a rake before Dad cleared his throat. Rolling my eyes, I turned to give Roy a wicked, sarcastic apology that would probably get me a speech from Dad, but before I could say a word, a voice came from behind me. The kid on the bike did it on purpose. A skinny boy, about my age and size, stepped up next to me. He and his mom had moved into Site 6 yesterday, and he'd kind of stuck in my mind on account of the big tan trench coat he wore all the time. Roy scowled at the new kid. You're a big fat liar. The kid pushed his wet, brown, shaggy bangs to one side and stared coolly at Roy. I saw you. Dad held up both hands, looking between the two kids. Okay, I'm sure there's a good explanation here, somewhere. Let's let it go for now. Coop and I need to get this trash run done so we can get to the dump before it starts raining again. Dad went to get an empty trash can. Roy looked at the new kid and me, raised his fist, and silently motioned to it in the palm of his other hand before racing off on his bike towards the playground. The new kid reached for my shovel to help. As I raked the trash into a pile for him to pick up, I said, "Thanks." "No problem." He was about to say more when we heard static. I put a hand to my camp radio, half expecting it to be Mom needing me to do a chore or Molly wanting me to push her on the swing or something. But it wasn't my radio making all the noise. I looked at the new kid. He was elbow deep in one of his many outside pockets of his detective-like coat. Pulling out his own walkie-talkie, he sighed into it. "Mom." More static. "Mom, hold the button down, then talk." Laughter came through. "I'll figure it out soon, Pete, I promise," she said. "Breakfast is ready. Come on back to the site." "Waffles," he said, rubbing his stomach with a grin. "Catch up with you in a bit?" I shook my head. "Maybe later. Dad and I are going out on the lake after the trash run." Feeling Dad's hand on my shoulder, I grinned up at him. But he looked down at me with a sad, "I hope you'll understand when I ditch you again to work" look. "Dad, you promised you'd go this time. You said no matter what." I know, but something's come up. A camper on Raccoon Trail told your mom there's a dead tree behind his pop-up that's leaning heavy to one side this morning. Dad lifted his hat to run a hand through his short hair. And, of course, it's leaning towards the campsite, so before the wind and the rain drop it, I've got to chop the tree down, cut it up, and clean up the mess. My words came out in a rush. "But patrolling the lake is important, too. The loons haven't laid their eggs yet. They're wicked late. What if they don't lay any at all? You told me more and more campers were coming to see them, right? The eagle babies are poking their heads above the nest now, and the beavers have been..." "Cooper, you're 12 now," Dad frowned. "You need to understand that just because we're the owners doesn't mean I can drop everything when I feel like it and play game warden with you." "I don't play it, Dad. I do it. And I haven't done it in like a week. Please?" Dad squeezed my shoulder, which was code for "sorry, but no" means no. I stepped out from under his hand. Without Dad, I couldn't go out on the lake. Rule of 2. No fishing without a friend. No boating without a friend. Only I didn't have any friends right now. Or did I? Ignoring the tight feeling in my throat, I called out to the new kid who was walking away. "Hey," what did his mom called him? Pete?" When he turned around, I said, "Change of plans. Want to go out on the lake in half an hour?" Pete gave me a thumbs up. "Get me when you're done. I'll hang out on the playground after I eat." I breathed a sigh of relief. Now, if I could just get this trash run done before one of the camp kids told him he wasn't supposed to hang out with me. As Dad and I finished scooping up Roy's exploded mess, he tried talking to me, but yes and no answers were all he was going to get. I'd been waiting days, no, a month, to go out in the canoe with him. No way was I forgiving him in like 2 minutes. The drizzle had stopped, but now mayflies were out in full force. I slapped the back of my neck and rubbed my short, dirty blonde hair every time they swarmed me. Dad and I took care of the last can on the street. Then he jumped in the truck's driver's seat while I stood outside on the passenger side running board. Those mayflies couldn't land on me to suck my blood as long as we were rolling. At the end of the road, Dad took a right. He was only driving about 5 miles an hour, but the wind made my eyes sting. Pines, maples, birches, and elms stood on both sides of the road as far as I could see. 60 acres full of nature, and it was all ours. Wilder Family Campground. One hand on the door handle, I reached out as far as I could to slap the heavy branches out of my way, so I didn't get swatted in the face or the legs. "Cooper," Dad said, his sharp voice almost making me jump back off the running board, "hold on with both hands. If you fall off and get hurt, your mother will never let us hear the end of it." When we reached the lake, the trees opened up to show a large beach with a roped-off swimming area. To the left of that, paddleboards, kayaks, and canoes and rowboats in every size and color were tied to our docks. Back from the beach, under the pine grove, stood picnic tables and grills on posts. Dad parked and I leaned in the open passenger window. "So I'll do the beach cans and then I'll go back up to get the game room and the playground cans," I said. "Then I'm done for the morning, right?" "Yup, let's meet at say 1 o'clock to clean the bathrooms," Dad said. I glanced at Dad's watch. Counting the cans I still had to empty and a trip to the dump to help him unload, Pete and I would get about 2 hours to kayak. I wonder if he likes to fish. As I jumped off the running board, a short, baldish, round guy wearing a green raincoat looked our way from where he stood on the dock. Arms waving in a big way, Mr. Beekman shouted, "Hey, Jim, got a minute?" When Dad got out of the truck and nodded, the man said, "Just need to tie up my boat first." I knew I was about to whine like Molly whenever she lost her purple stuffed elephant, but there was no stopping it. Forgetting how mad I was at him, I went back to tug Dad's sleeve and beg with everything I had, "Come on, Dad, we don't have time to listen to Mr. Beekman complain again. The new kid's waiting, and I don't want him going off with someone else." "Cooper," Dad's voice was firm, but there was a twinkle in his eye, too. "His name is Mr. Beekman. How many times do I have to tell you making fun of his nose isn't nice? Talking to the campers, even the grumbly ones, is part of our job. It's called customer service." When Mom and Dad bought the campground a couple years ago and moved us from the city streets of Portland to the wooded edges of Pine Lake, I knew I'd love nature watching, hiking, and hanging out with kids from all over the country. But there were 3 things I hadn't counted on. The first was chores, like cleaning bathrooms and emptying 132 trash cans twice a week. The second was sharing Mom and Dad with all the campers all the time. And the third was customer service. It meant smiling, listening, and being nice to customers and their kids, even the mean ones. Dad and I watched Mr. Beekman step off the dock and raise an arm to tell us he was on his way over. Suddenly, his right leg buckled a little as he tripped over a tree root and wobbled before catching his balance again. Wiping the tip of his shiny white sneaker on the back of his other pant leg, he grumbled the whole time about how dirty the dirt was. "I think," I said quietly, "I'd rather do trash pickup than customer service." And that's the end of chapter 1. Now, before I let you go, I did want to mention that a lot of the inspiration from Cooper and Packrat's adventures comes from my family having owned a campground for 27 years in Poland Spring Campground. So the talk about the trash run and taking 132 bags of trash and pulling out everyone and throwing them in the back of the dump truck, that was real. I did that. My family did that. That was in the early years. And then cleaning bathrooms twice a day, every day. We did that too. So as you read the stories, keep that in mind. A lot of the chores in the books is real. I also wanted to mention that while we lived and worked at Poland Spring Campground on Lower Rang Pond, I was able to monitor the loons and other wildlife. For instance, every year I knew that they would come and nest around May, and if the nest failed, they would re-nest, usually beginning of June. I knew that they had a favorite nesting place, and it was the same for probably the first 18 years until they moved it, because there was one year when the water rose up and flooded the nest. I knew that they usually had 2 chicks, sometimes only 1. I hope you enjoy the rest of the story, and if you'd like to see more photos of loons and even a year where I monitor them by going out on the lake every single morning in May and June, then you go to my website, tamrawhite.com, and you'll find a lot more information. Thank you and happy reading.